vast repertoire of food that I can prepare for the clients. And in a way, it's like it's a compliment when they ask for the same thing over and over again. Then they really like it. But on the other hand, it gets to be a little boring because it's somewhat pedestrian to do the same things over and over again. And this happens to be one of them. This is my Thanksgiving turkey burger, and the reason I call it that is processed stuffing. And the brand that I like to use is Pepperidge Farm. Pepperidge Farm stuffing is not available all year round. I think you have Mrs. Kubison's.
Yeah.
You sometimes get health food store variety. It really doesn't matter, but I prefer the Pepperidge Farm for my particular version. It's a personal preference. For example, with breadcrumb, I like to use seasoned Italian breadcrumbs, Progresso. Why? Because I'm from New York, and that's what they use in New York, okay? I mean, it may not be the best quality product, it's maybe not as good as fresh made breadcrumbs, but it's a cultural thing in a way, The Italians that I grew up with on the East Coast all used Progresso brand. Kind of graduated from Progresso tomatoes, though. I'm using the Mure Glen now. I like the flavor of the organic tomatoes more than of it. But like Progresso tomato sauce, it really is pretty awful. It's a very acidic tomatoes. They're not really very good, but because I grew up with them, I tend to lean towards them. I'm not several brands of San Marzano tomatoes. We have the Italian chopped tomato from Organic Farms, and that's Italian. And then I also have the San Marzano crushed tomatoes, which I find are really nice, very sweet, naturally sweet. You don't have to add sugar. And then you have your what's the tomato sauce? Your Glen Organic, which we know is very good.
Thanksgiving turkey burgers during the time of year when the Pepperidge Farm is available?
No, I'll use, if I can't find the Pepperidge Farm, I'll use an alternative. Kubison's, and I won't use the cornbread stuffing blend. I'll use the regular wheat or white. I mean, if you wanted to make it like a healthier version, you could actually go with a health food store stuffing.
Right.
Because all of these stuffings do have other ingredients in their, preservatives and not organic based wheat being used in the bread, that's for sure.
So how much do you put in?
Let's say this is about 2 pounds of meat right here. I'm going to add, let's say, about 3/4 of a cup of breadcrumbs. You don't really have to be too exacting with in addition to acting as sort of a filler, it's also, I'm using the breadcrumbs to absorb the juice from the chicken broth to kind of absorb the flavor. And I am going to add a little bit of chicken broth just to kind of lighten it up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
To the meat itself.
Yeah.
Well, if you were making Italian meatballs the old-fashioned way, like Rocky's, what's that guy's name? He was on Rocco or he had his mother in his restaurant making meatballs for his restaurant. Sitting in the back making meatballs all day long. She had this big tray of like 50 pounds of beef and pork and veal.
Sounds real old world.
The guy put her to work. I mean, he put his mother to work, and then she finally, I think they quit. She's like, you know what, I've had enough of this. Even though there's some seasoning in the breadcrumb, I'm going to add seasoned salt. How much? Don't ask. The only way that you can test this is, let's just say I put it about a half a teaspoon to start. Half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon for the 2 pounds. And what I'm going to do is, that's it for the basic burger mixture. And what I'm going to do is heat a pan, I'm going to test it and taste it and cook them up, because you don't want to under-season it or over-season it. Of course, it's better to under-season than to over-season. That's why I didn't add too much of the seasoned salt, because I want to test it first. Well, this is the final pan. Just take a smaller pan to test them in. And I'm going to use a thin layer of grapeseed. I work with two different types of oil. You have your vegetable oil for frying, and then you have your olive oil, which you could also fry in or use for salad dressings or or to basically saute in or whatever. But for vegetable oil, my oil of choice is grapeseed oil. Why? It has a higher smoke point, in a way. You could fry beautifully in grapeseed oil, and generally the food will not absorb the oil, so it won't get like dredged, won't be greasy. And so the grapeseed oil, if I had my choice, this one is from Italy. I like the grapeseed oil that is from Sonoma. There's a company called Salute Santé, but it's very expensive oil. For that matter, would be in a metal container or in a dark glass container. I guess the UV rays really affect the quality of the oil. It can turn rancid. Oh, oils turn rancid pretty quickly too. You have to make sure you use them. That's another reason why I don't like to buy in large quantities. So you don't want to have a whole gallon. Exactly. But usually when I go into a job, when I go to a location, the first thing I do is check their spices and their oils, and I smell them to make sure that they're fresh. And then I ask the housekeeper, how long has this oil been here? And I don't know, maybe a year. You're like, okay. So you know that they're cooking with cooked in rancid oil. Well, the burger's going to be dressed with Thousand Island dressing.
Oh, I don't think that needs much.
I think it's fine.
That's fine.
I think it has enough flavor. And probably put together a little bit of a Thousand Island dressing.
You're doing
I'll
it with
put
the
the
miso
burgers
shallots, chicken strips, you do it together? Or is that two things?
No, those are two things.
Oh, okay.
So what I wanted to do is show the students two samples of breakfast. We kind of only went over one,
Yeah.
with the poached egg and the scones, because we started later. But I wanted to do 2 lunches, 2 dinners, and a dessert, or 1 or 2 desserts, so that you can walk away from the class with 2 days worth of food for the employer. Now, also, there are 2 reasons for that. One is, aside from having the student feel confident, the employer may be paying for the class, and it's going to be $175 for the day. So I think that if the employer pays for the class, they want that housekeeper or that person coming back to their house and recreating what we've cooked here. And so that's what what am I doing? I just, I want to justify the cost by offering 2 days worth of menus.